Hi, I'm Josip Novakovich, and I will read a short piece of fiction which I wrote for the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation. And, okay, here it is. The title is Red Tide. While staying at an art colony on a quay near Fort Myers in Florida, every morning I saw people collecting shark teeth 10,000 years old. First, you just don't see them. But once you see one black little triangle, you see others. Your eyes have been trained. Anyhow, it was entertaining. As with the living sharks. The first day of my stay there, I swam and saw the dolphin fins nicely curved backwards. Passers-by said, "Isn't it too cold?" I said, "No, just right." And they said, "You must be Russian." I said, "No, I live in Canada." "Oh, that's similar," they said. I swam in deep waters and I saw fins gliding and thought, great, more lovely dolphins. But these fins went straight up, indicating sharks. The fins slid gracefully past me at a distance of some 50 paces. Well, I got out of the water and told Robin, who ran the artist colony, about the sharks. And she said, "These are nursing sharks." "I don't want them to nurse me," I said. "Well, they won't do anything to you. You're more likely to lose a limb riding a bike. Will you at least wear a helmet when you bike around? The road is so narrow, and some of the retired people who drive here may be half blind. You've heard this, that the old people retire on the east coast of Florida and their parents on the west coast? Iguanas ran around like velociraptor babies, and men in orange uniforms like garbage collectors with nets ran after them. What are these guys doing?" I asked Robin. They're just catching iguanas. This is not their natural habitat, and they eat the sea turtle eggs. We catch them and drive them to an area which is their habitat, near the Everglades. During my first day of staying there was a gluey smell, and I sneezed and closed my windows and turned on the AC. The next day the smell grew smellier. I wanted to go for a swim, but saw on the beach hundreds of fish, belly up. "What's that?" I asked the leathery-faced walker who was with his metal detector looking for wedding rings and Spanish gold. "That's the red tide," he said. "Some bacteria in the water multiply and use up all the oxygen, so the fish can't breathe and they die." The next day there were perhaps 1,000 fish shimmering in the rising sun, silver bathed in golden rays. But the air was heavy like fumes in a tire factory. My eyes watered, I sneezed, and I hoped this would improve in a day or so, but the following day there were more dead fish and I coughed. Nearly everybody around me coughed. Some elderly people developed pneumonia, and perhaps a few deaths resulted from the sea plague. I wondered why this heavy bacterial air didn't bother some and did most of us. After a week I had a full-blown bronchitis. I wondered how long the sea would be giving up its life, its fish. Black vulture appeared on the island, hundreds of them swooping down onto the dead, filling their beaks and throats. When I drove to town to buy oranges, I saw several trees without leaves and hunched black birds like old monks sitting on the branches. It seemed like doomsday trees on which vulture grew. There was a certain deadly beauty to it all. I took a photo of them to use as a base for a charcoal drawing. Charcoal was not good for mangroves, which came in 100 of shades of brown and green, but it was perfect for the vulture. I wanted to leave the paradise now, coughing and breathing hard as though afflicted with MERS or something. Maybe I was, I thought. What came first, the bacteria from the air or from the water? And how about viruses? At night my cough tortured me and even gagged me. Winds howled, palm branches flew, a coconut hit the roof. Most of the beach was gone when it was all over. All that sand and the shark teeth that the sea was spitting out for millennia were swallowed back into the sea. All the vultures were gone too, and so were the dead fish. Maybe they came back to life in the water, but I doubt it unless there is a submarine Jesus resurrecting the fish. The iguanas were gone, and I was about to be gone too, as my time was up. Now, a couple of nights before my departure, I drank red wine with a Catalan opera composer Sandra. And she said, "The sky is so incredible now. You can see the Milky Way and the constellations." I said, "Yes, if you don't have astigmatism and aren't nearsighted, you can see it all very well." You know why people imagine that stars have limbs? Because most people are at least slightly astigmatic and the light from the stars breaks into lines. That could be true, she said, but I can see them sharply, beautiful dots, ending many sentences. You don't see the text, but only the periods, and you can imagine what the sky could tell you if you could read the darkness. While I was leaving the following day, she gave me a kiss on the cheek, but that reminded me that we didn't have a real kiss, which remained unspoken in the starry sky. And the artistic director, Robin, also kissed me on the cheek. And we all coughed. My cough lasted for 2 months, and I suspected that I had coronavirus, which had developed in the meantime. A year later, after 1 million people had died and the virus seemed to be gone, with the new vaccine developed by Pfizer, I visited New York City and attended Sandra's premiere of opera in a dying Catalan dialect. I thought Catalan was a dialect, but no. It's a language, and like any language, it has dialects. Only 500 people in a couple of villages spoke this dialect. The Spanish flu had taken with it many of the speakers, but Sandra resurrected it in an opera. Now the Metropolitan looked different from what it was before. Every second row was taken out, and moreover, every second remaining seat was taken out so that it looked like a first class on British Airways rather than the economy class on Delta. I got together with Sandra the following evening for some Rioja, and as we met, we instinctively leaned over for a kiss but stopped midair. It would be a crime against humanity, she joked and said, "Chin chin," and we drank some Royal Rioja, and I had a big gulp listening to my Adam's apple pop. "Wow, it's $25 a glass," I said. "Hard to get carried away at that rate." "Haven't you saved enough money in this long self-isolation?" She said, "I have. Now we can splurge. Anyway, we aren't going to get carried away. I'm not going to kiss. I'd sooner have sex with you than a kiss. The technology of sex is safe, you know, with all the gloves and face masks and goggles." "Oh, we aren't going to do that either." I said that would resemble surgery, like we are getting rid of an appendix. Or scuba diving, like we are looking for starfish. By the way, I missed the meaning of your opera. What is it about? About the Black Plague? In the Black Plague, many dialects disappeared, you know, she said. So it's kind of reversed from the Tower of Babel? We knocked our glasses. Sandra's eyes sparkled under sharp eyebrows. The glass rim got a fresh print of her cherry lipstick, just the lower lip, and I looked up to see what the glass missed. A red wave with a drop-off under her nasal septum. A wave reminding me of the red tide in the stormy sea. I would be sure to paint the upper lip in crimson. The end. Anyhow, so Paul Vidich, the famous spy novelist, asked me this about the story. "Most, if not all, personal accounts of the pandemic are straightforward reportage, heart-wrenching accounts of loss, or sad meditations on our collective fate. But your piece is subversive. I read it as memoir until I got to the part where we live in a world where sex is enjoyed with condoms, gloves, and goggles. How did you come up to write a Swiftian satire about the pandemic?" Well, anyhow, I'm not sure it's a Swiftian satire, but how we live in many ways is ridiculous. And I remember living in New York City when the AIDS crisis started, and so the concept of safe sex, we actually didn't know how far it would go and what technology would come with it, and so I simply used that kind of imagination for this piece of fiction. And of course, it is fiction. It's about a painter who enjoys the visuals, anyhow. With the pandemic, almost all of us write fiction in our heads. I mean, we've all been on ventilators. We've all imagined what it would be like to be really afflicted. So willy-nilly, whether you put it down on the page or not, you kind of fictionalize all kinds of possibilities. And of course, the worst case scenario. In this story, there's no worst case scenario. But anyhow, that's about it, and thank you for your attention.
I'm Paul Vidich. I'm going to be reading something I wrote during COVID, which was written for Alone Together. It's relatively brief. Easter Sunday. I remember in no particular order the morning sun, quiet, empty Soho streets, sparrows chirping on the fire escape outside my loft window, a wailing siren somewhere nearby carrying someone stricken by the virus. The illness of the sick passenger isn't something I know for sure, but these days, whenever I hear an ambulance scream past, I think of the many thousands of dead in New York City. Emergency rooms spill into parking lots, ventilators are scarce, life and death, a lottery. The abundant unclaimed dead are buried in a potter's field on an island in the East River. How did the financial capital of the world, this magnetic city of art and culture, and my home for 42 years, become the epicenter of the global pandemic? My wife Linda and I are confined to our loft. Thankfully, it is large, well-furnished, and a comfortable place to spend our days and weeks. We live in time. It holds us, carries us, and we float on it like rafts on a river. I've never understood time well, and the mystery of it has deepened with age and further deepened by our confinement. Ordinary, everyday time, with its digital clocks and wristwatches, continues as it always has as a reminder of appointments and Zoom calls. There's a new, more elastic time that has come with our confinement, a sense of timelessness and a yawning, unknowable, and possibly implausible future. The first days in mid-March weren't difficult. Fear kept us indoors, and we used our computers and smartphones to stay in touch with friends, students, and faculty and family. But with each week and the soaring number of dead, it gradually became clear that we would not be returning to our old life soon. Maybe never. Days have begun to pass quickly, and we feel strangely comfortable with our quotidian victories. The fish wholesaler, whose restaurant supply business disappeared overnight and retooled to direct-to-consumer business. Twice a week, he delivers salmon, halibut, scallops, and mussels. A few times a week, I make forays outside for food, medicine, household goods, and to see which retail store has been boarded up to protect against vandals. We have become comfortable in our new patterns. Writing in the morning, breakfast late, exercise, FaceTime with grandchildren, and compare who we've seen with which bits of alarming news that have come to us through our smartphones. Quarantine is imposing something new. Sometimes some things will return to what they were, but already I have a sense that there will be permanent casualties. Favorite restaurants won't reopen. Lost tourists will shutter brand new retail shops. Our complicit submission to the ways in which we've never ever been surveilled in the past. I've been working on another novel, and it happens to explore the insidious ways East German Stasi surveillance tore at the souls of its citizens. These days, this is something that worries me. How much privacy in the name of virus containment must we give to our governments, knowing as we do that privacy and data, once surrendered, can never be recovered? I was asked a question by Josip Novakovich about what I just wrote. Let me read the question. It's a statement and then followed by a question. Joseph writes, although you wrote nonfiction, you created an atmosphere that could fly into fiction at any moment with your imagination and questions. It seems like the Decameron was about to happen in an updated version. While the Decameron uses a pandemic to break down the limits and create freedom, you go in the other direction. You see the threats in the loss of privacy, contact tracing, and our willingness to go along with surveillance, which you imagine is here to stay with us. And you just happen to be writing about Stasi in East Germany, who were mere amateurs compared with the surveillance pros these days. And his question is, will you write some kind of Orwellian novel to pursue the state surveillance fictionally and prophetically? Is East Germany a metaphor for you to actually write about us, the US? Should I be worried because you are my contact? And he says of that last line, a lame joke. So, brief answer, The Matchmaker, which is the title of my new novel, is set in East Berlin at the time of the fall of the wall, and it looks at how the apparatus of surveillance can destroy individual lives. Of course, in the end, East Germany was a sick, crippled country that collapsed from within. Authoritarian regimes now, however, have more sophisticated tools to control dissent. Facial recognition technology, powerful data analysis tools give China the ability to identify protesters in Hong Kong. And once identified, they can lose jobs, apartments, be arrested. It's a bit like the Jewish star in Nazi Germany. And authoritarian regimes are on the rise in China, Russia, Turkey, and arguably in the United States. These regimes have extraordinary tools of repression available to them. It's a future I worry about, and it's a future I have written about by looking backwards to East Germany. Thank you very much.